The drone hovered like a silent predator, its metal wings blocking out the sun. My heart raced as I jumped into my truck, turning onto the path leading to the ridge where I had spotted it. Every instinct shouted danger. I slammed the truck door and scanned the landscape for signs of movement. The flags marked with red and white poked up like flags of war, staked along my fence line. Someone was laying claim, but I wouldn't let them take what was mine. I had battled Cedar Grove HOA, and though I had survived, the fight was far from over. The sight of a man with a clipboard made my blood boil. He stood near a parked truck emblazoned with the name Oak Ridge Development Company. He was another cog in the machine, another predatory shark ready to encircle my territory. I took a deep breath and moved toward him. "Hey there, neighbor," he said, his grin too wide, a mask for something malevolent. "Just doing some early prep for a new luxury community up this way. Golf course, spa, modern living, you know? Whose land are you planning to develop?" I shot back, my voice low and firm. He pointed to a map held against his chest. "Everything beyond that ridge just got bought up. Our client is filing for annexation. You're sitting right near the new planned entrance." "Who's the client?" He shrugged, feigning ignorance. "Confidential. But I'm sure you'll enjoy the amenities. Nice additions to your ranch, right?" I stepped closer, heart hammering in my chest. "You can drop the act. I'm not going anywhere." His smile faltered, just a flicker, and I could see apprehension mingling in his eyes. "Look, this is just business, man. You won't be able to fight them all. Bigger forces are at play." "Not on my land," I retorted, my resolve hardening. "I'll fight back, and I'll make sure everyone knows what's happening here." "Good luck with that," he replied, reeling back to his truck, not ready for the fight I was about to unleash. I sped back home, adrenaline pumping through my veins. I found Eric already inside the barn, repairing some fencing damaged in the storm. "We've got a problem," I yelled. "Another HOA hit?" he asked, glancing up from the workbench. "Not just them, Oak Ridge Development. They plan to annex. This isn't just an HOA, it's a development juggernaut looking to corner land in this area. We need to move fast." Eric met my gaze, determination in his eyes. "What's the plan?" "We fight fire with fire. I'm calling Maria and reassembling the team." An hour later, I sat with Maria, Eric, and Ashley in the living room, the air thick with tension and urgency. "We can't just battle Cedar Grove, we need to confront these developers like Oak Ridge head-on. We combine our resources, and we mobilize everyone we've been in touch with." Ashley nodded, her reporter instincts kicking in. "More stories. We raise awareness. We broadcast everything. I can set up an online petition," Eric added. "Get everyone involved. The community needs to know what's at stake." "Exactly," I said, feeling a rush of energy. "This is the moment we turn the tides. We need to build support before they pull any more stunts." As we strategized, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. I glanced at the screen, frowning. It was a single line, "Your fight is futile. Consider this a warning." My blood ran cold. They know what we're planning. I showed the message to the group, and a heavy silence blanketed the room. "We need to ramp it up. They've sent a clear threat," Maria said, her tone shifting from calm to urgent. "We can't hide or retreat. It's time we make our stand public." "We get it on the news," Ashley insisted, eyes flashing with determination. "We blow the roof off this whole operation." That night, I couldn't sleep. I paced in the dark with a million thoughts swirling. What if Cedar Grove wasn't the only group fighting for that land? What if others joined in? The next morning, energized and resolved, I gathered my community allies and set up a rally. I wanted their voices, every farmer and homeowner who had been affected by the shady dealings of these faceless corporations. We set a date, and in the lead-up, I made calls, reaching out to everyone I could find. As I announced the rally, my phone buzzed again. This time, 2 messages from different numbers, both ominous: "You're stepping into dangerous territory, and get out while you still can." But with every threat, I felt my resolve harden like iron. They could push me, but I wouldn't budge. I would not abandon the dream I had fought so hard to build. On the day of the rally, the turnout exceeded anything I had imagined. People packed the yard, holding signs and chanting against the encroachment, their messages filling the air with hope. My spirit soared, it was a community revitalized. As I stepped onto the makeshift stage, the roar of support swept through me. I began to speak. "We are not just defending one ranch, we're defending our homes and freedom. They want to drown us in fees, rules, regulations, but we say, no more. We're here to take back our rights. The crowd erupted, their energy electric, fueling my fire to keep speaking truth to power. What I didn't anticipate was what happened next. Amid the cheers and chants, a vehicle roared into the driveway, an SUV with dark windows. My heart sank as it parked, and for a moment, time froze. The door flung open, and out stepped Gregory Holt, now looking more serious than ever, flanked by two men in suits. The crowd fell silent, tension thick enough to slice through. "Mr. Jenkins," Gregory called, his voice cold and challenging. "This rally is a violation of the zoning regulations and a disruption to public order." I stepped down from the podium, glancing at Eric and Maria, who nodded at me to keep cool. "What do you want, Gregory?" "I'm here to offer a compromise," he said, smirking slightly. "You can save everyone a lot of trouble if you agree to our terms." "And what are those terms?" I asked, my voice steady, but I could feel the tension crackling in the air. "Withdraw from your opposition and sign a non-disclosure agreement. In return, we'll leave you alone. You can keep your precious ranch." He thought I would fold so easily. The crowd scoffed, a rumble of laughter cascading through them. "You think I would sell out for that?" I challenged. Gregory leaned closer, eyes narrowing. "This is a warning. I suggest you think long and hard about the consequences of resisting us." Without waiting for a response, he turned with his entourage and walked away, but not before I saw his companion pull out a tablet and start recording. "We're just getting started, aren't we?" I murmured, a wave of defiance sweeping through me. The fight was escalating, but I wasn't alone. I wouldn't let my ranch fall to anybody, HOA or otherwise. As the crowd reignited with cheers, I felt a sense of purpose wash over me. Against all odds, we were united, ready to take down whoever stood in our way. The drone might have disappeared, but the fight was only just beginning. I stood there, fists clenched, as Gregory and his crew sauntered away, their footsteps crunching against the gravel like nails on a chalkboard. I could feel the tension from the crowd, their eager eyes glued to the spectacle unfolding before them. This was no longer just about my ranch, it was a showdown against an entire system that wanted to claim lives just like mine. Are we really letting him walk away like that? Eric's voice sliced through my thoughts. His jaw was tight, frustration etched across his face. "No," I said, shaking my head. "We're going to push harder." Before I could finish, a commotion in the crowd drew my attention. A woman in a yellow jacket was waving her arms, barely able to contain her anger. "They're trying to bulldoze our rights," she shouted. "That doesn't just happen to him, it happens to all of us." Her words hung in the air, sparking something within the crowd. They began to murmur, then shout in agreement, voices rising like waves, drowning out the excuses of the HOA. I could feel it, a shift, a surge of collective strength. "Let's bring the fight to them," I yelled, a fresh energy propelling me forward. "Let's show them we won't back down." The calls of support echoed back, and it was like a jolt of electricity. But just as the crowd erupted, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, recognizing the number. It was Maria. "Jack, you need to hear this," she said, urgency spilling from her tone. "I just got some information about a meeting the Cedar Grove HOA board is holding tonight. It's a closed-door session regarding their expansion plan." "Tonight?" "Yeah. They can't finalize anything yet because of your public protests, but they are plotting. We need to find out what they are saying." "Then let's infiltrate," I replied, excitement coursing through me. "We'll need a plan." Quickly, we gathered a small group of my most trusted allies, Eric, Ashley, and a few others who had joined the fight. In hushed tones, we laid out our strategy. Eric would use his connections to reach out to some folks on the inside who had an invite to the meeting. And I would be the distraction. As night fell and the shadows grew longer, a shroud of mystery cloaked Cedar Grove's meeting venue. I parked a little way down the street, heart racing. The HOA building loomed ahead, brimming with people who thought they could control the lives of those who just wanted to live freely. "Remember your role," Eric's voice echoed in my head. "Just stick to the plan. Keep them occupied while we get the intel." I nodded, adrenaline fueling me as I stepped out into the cool night air. The plan needed to work, it was the only way to get ahead in this game. As I approached the entrance, a tall figure in a suit stood guard, arms crossed. "Can I help you?" he asked, a skeptical eyebrow raised. "Yeah, I'm here for the meeting." "Name's Jenkins," I replied, trying to keep my swagger. He squinted at me, and for a brief moment, I thought he might call my bluff. Instead, he simply waved me through, muttering something about needing to check the list. Inside, I stepped into a cramped hallway filled with flickering lights and whispered conversations. I wasn't going to let anything stop me now. I had to find out what they were planning. I quickly ducked into an adjacent room, heart pounding in my chest. Voices filtered through the thin walls, and I pressed my ear against them. A murmur of discontent swelled, and I could discern some names: Douglas Kane, Gregory Holt, the board members, the very people I had been up against. The public opposition is growing stronger each day, Douglas said, frustration threading his voice. That Jenkins guy is rallying people like they are fraternity. We can't let him gain any more traction. Maybe we should just cancel the expansion, one of the board members suggested. No way. We original members worked too hard for this. We need to shut him down, quiet him once and for all. If we can discredit him, we might regain control before it's too late. My blood ran cold. They were scared. And they planned to strike back. Their whispers continued, revealing schemes that would twist our efforts into chaos. I was about to step back when a sudden noise echoed from the hallway. Panic surged through me. I ducked behind a large conference table as the door swung open, and in walked Gregory, flanked by two of his cronies. We have to get ahead of this, Gregory urged. If we can plant a few rumors, scare the community into compliance, this whole thing could fall apart. We'll make an example of Jenkins. He won't know what hit him. I squeezed my fists tighter, trying to maintain my position. The room crackled with deceit, their arrogance gnawing at the edges of my resolve. I couldn't let that happen. Just then, a loud crash came from outside, shattering the tension in the room. I peeked out the door, heart racing. Eric had thrown a rock at the window to distract the guards. Let's go. I hissed to myself, adrenaline fueling my escape. As I darted through the hall, I could hear the commotion behind me escalating. I stumbled into an exit, bursting into the moonlit night. Jake. I heard Eric shout amongst the chaos. Over here. I gestured, summoning my allies as we regrouped behind the van. Did you get anything? Eric's face was a mask of concern. Everything. They're scared, and they're planning to discredit me. We need to spread this before they can act. As we piled into the vehicle, Ashley swung her car around, ready to lead us away. I glanced back at the building, seeing silhouettes moving frantically in the windows. Minutes later, back at the ranch, we gathered in the living room, tension thick in the air. I recounted the night's events as everyone absorbed the information. They're desperate, Mary stated, tapping her fingers on the table. If they feel threatened enough to resort to dirty tactics, we have a real chance to expose their schemes. Let's get this out there, then, Eric urged. We can't wait for them to act first. The rally had ignited the fire in the community, and now this newfound information was the kindling. The evening wore on as we crafted a new plan to leverage the intel I had just gathered. I'll write the article, Ashley declared. We need the public prepared. The more noise we make, the more people will back us up. And I'll reach out to some contacts, Eric added. Get some campaign posts rolling. If we keep the pressure on, we can drown out their tactics before they even get started. Just as I felt a surge of hope, my phone buzzed. Another message, but this one was familiar. It read, "You're playing a dangerous game, Jenkins. Back off while you can." I swallowed hard. They were watching. A knock at the door broke the tension. We froze. "There's no way it's them already," Ashley whispered. I opened the door cautiously and my breath hitched. A neighbor stood outside, anxious and clearly shaken. "Jack, I just saw someone stalking around your property. They've been peering in the windows." Instinct kicked in. "Grab the cameras," I demanded, racing out onto the porch, Eric and Mary right behind me. "Stay low," I hissed as we scanned the darkness. Just then, I heard a rustling near the barn, a shadow darting between the trees. Without a second thought, I sprinted toward the movement, determined to confront whoever was encroaching on my home. But as I reached the barn, a figure burst out from behind the corner. I narrowed my eyes, ready to challenge. "Who's there?"
A second later, the figure turned, and I gasped. It was one of the men from the HOA meeting, Mason, the one we had caught trying to burn the barn. "I'm not here to cause trouble," he pleaded, hands raised in surrender. "I swear." Another unexpected twist. "Really?" I demanded, my heart racing with caution. "Then why are you lurking around my property?" I heard them talking," he stuttered, fear creeping into his eyes. They are planning something big, and you need to know. What are you talking about? My words slipped out, laced with bewilderment. He glanced back nervously, as if ensuring no one else was watching. They are going to accuse you of something that could get you thrown out for good. They are talking about vandalism. They want to frame you for something you didn't do. I felt the ground tremble beneath me. Was this a ploy to draw me into their web of lies? But deep down, I sensed he was sincere. Mason, why would you tell me this? Because I don't want to be part of their game anymore. I thought I could make some quick money, and I didn't know they'd go this far. Please. Something flickered inside me, an ember of doubt. Could I trust him, or was this a last exploit of a desperate man? Before I could answer, a roar of engines broke the stillness, headlights piercing the dark from the direction of Cedar Grove. They are coming. Mason shouted, panic in his voice. You need to hide. Instinct kicked in again, igniting a fresh surge of fear and urgency. We couldn't afford to sit idle. Determined, I shot Mason a hard look. Then help us. We're taking this fight to them. Just as the reality of the threat hit, I felt the fear transform into fierce determination. Together, we were going to expose every single one of their lies. We would not go quietly into their night. As the trucks rumbled closer, I could almost feel the collective heartbeat of the community behind me. It was time to stand firm, to face the storm head-on, and turn the tables. Then help us. We're taking this fight to them, I said, my voice a mixture of fury and resolve. The rumble of engines grew louder, thundering down the dirt road toward our property. Mason nodded, understanding the stakes. I'll tell you everything I know, he replied, glancing back at the approaching lights. Move. Eric shouted, pulling us into action. We need a plan, and we need it now. We dashed into the barn, where the shadows swallowed everything but our urgency. I could feel the adrenaline coursing through my veins as I ran through the possibilities. Mason fell in step beside me, knee panic etched on his face. I heard them saying they have evidence, something they found on your property during the last raid. They plan to twist it against you, he gasped, his words tumbling out in a rush. Evidence? Like what? A tool, a marker, a spatula. They think it's yours, and they'll claim you were causing damage to the community. The revelation struck hard. They were zeroing in on anything they could use against me. So they are going to frame me for vandalism. Yes, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. But if you act fast, you can turn it back on them. They don't really have it, just bluster. I wheeled around and pressed a finger against my lips. We need more time. If we can outsmart them, I can use their twisted strategies against them. Just then, the headlights pierced into the barn through the cracks in the wooden walls. The low roar of the engines eclipsed the night, and my heart raced as I strained to see through the darkness. Get ready, I commanded, the wheels in my mind spinning. We need a distraction. Mason pulled open a drawer, and I caught a glimmer of the tools I had stashed away. If we can create a diversion, we might get a chance to grab the evidence they've planted on my property. Let's make some noise, Eric said, grabbing a handful of metal tools and slamming them down against the barn floor. The clang echoed through the silence like a siren calling an army to war. Come on, come on. I muttered under my breath as we prepared to execute the plan. We sprinted toward the back of the barn, still hearing the trucks rolling to a stop outside. Are they getting out? I whispered urgently to Mason. Just one. The lights off the others. They are playing it cautious, Mason replied, peeking through a crack. Good. Here's the plan. We hit fast and hard. Eric, you go around back. Mason, you and I will create chaos inside. The second you hear trouble, act fast. I could see fear flicker in Mason's eyes, but I had no time for hesitation. The door creaked open, and I caught a glimpse of a man in a suit. It was Gregory, his arrogance palpable even in the shadows. Jenkins, he yelled, his voice laced with condescension. You've been a real thorn in our side. But tonight, you're done. On cue, I hurled a hammer at the wall, and a following crash echoed behind him. The man lurched in surprise, and that was my signal. Go. I shouted, and Eric darted out the back exit, stealthily moving to the side of the barn. Mason and I charged forward, tackling the shocking chaos head-on. Just then, I spotted the evidence bag tucked under the table in the opposite corner, the very thing they thought could seal my fate. But before I could grab it, Gregory turned, fury etched into his face. "Get out," he bellowed, rushing toward me with a speed that belied his corporate demeanor. I sidestepped him just as Eric burst through the rear door, catching Gregory off guard, tackling him down to the ground with a solid thud. The sound rang out, mingling with the noise from the other side of the barn. "What are you doing?" I shouted at Eric, my heart pounding. "Grab it now." Mason joined the fray, lunging toward the evidence bag as Eric wrestled with Gregory, who struggled like a trapped animal. "I've got it," Mason exclaimed, holding the bag up like a trophy. "Start filming." I yelled at Eric as he struggled to keep Gregory pinned down. I snatched the bag from Mason's hands before Eric got control. The flicker of a flashlight caught my eye, and I turned just in time to catch another figure emerging from the darkness. It was one of the other HOA members, eyes burning with malice, catching the movement in the barn. I cursed under my breath. The chaos was about to get worse. "Back inside," Eric shouted, losing the balance as Gregory kicked and twisted beneath him, trying to get free. Just as I turned to retreat, I felt a hand grip my shoulder, ripping me back around. "You're coming with me," the man growled, dragging me towards the exit. "Let him go," Mason yelled, throwing a wrench at the intruder. It struck him on the shoulder, and he howled in pain, giving me just enough time to break free from his grasp.
"Run!" I shouted, adrenaline fueling my escape. We made a break for the back door, but Gregory had regained his footing and was charging toward us. "Don't let them escape," he bellowed, furious. The second HOA man was hot on our heels, and my heart thundered. With Mason in tow, I bolted outside, yelling for Eric. We scattered into the nearby trees, using the thick darkness to our advantage. The scent of pine surrounded us, but the adrenaline rush pushed us deeper, desperation fueling each leap over stumps and under branches. We split up as we heard engines roaring to life behind us. "Meet back at the ranch," I yelled, ducking behind a massive oak. I pressed myself against the trunk, chest heaving, as I peered back toward the barn. I could see the lights flickering in the distance, the heavy thumps of boots hitting the ground like a hunting party on the prowl. They were tracking us. Heart racing, I needed to think. I needed a plan. My mind raced through every possible outcome. Then it struck me, Gregory and his board members would be in disbelief that we'd outsmarted them. But if they believed I had evidence against them, they would do anything to reclaim control. I pulled out my phone, the screen lighting up with notifications from the community rally. They were already buzzing with support. With a surge of instinct, I began to type a message, fingers flying over the screen. "They're coming to get us," I wrote, sending it out to everyone. "We need backup. Now." The reply came almost instantly, "We're on our way." I took a deep breath, repositioning myself behind the tree. The sound of the trucks rumbled closer, the headlights skimming the edge of the trees. I had to take a stand at my home, and this would be the battleground. Just as I was about to make a move, I heard a familiar voice behind me. "Jack. Over here." It was Eric, rushing towards me, panting but determined. "I saw your message. The others are coming." I turned, the urgency of the moment pressing down on me. "We're hitting them hard. No more backing down. Together, we take this fight to them." He nodded, tightening his grip on the evidence bag. "We show them the truth." As the headlights drew near, I felt the weight of the community behind me, the support swelling my courage. Together, we would shine a light on the darkness. Eric and I crouched low, waiting for the sound of tires on gravel, the moment they would finally reveal themselves. Equipped with the truth, we would combat their lies. Then, they arrived, trucks swarming like hornets, headlights piercing the night. We waited. "Now!" I shouted, leaping forward with Eric close behind me. We charged through the trees, coming into view with a sense of purpose that sent a ripple of shock through the crew waiting outside their trucks. "Mason! Get the phone ready!" I shouted as we stormed toward the group, hearts pounding and adrenaline rushing. He switched on the camera, thrilling at the sudden confrontation and the incredible tension in the air. "Hold it right there!" I yelled, facing Gregory and his lackeys. "You've been trying to intimidate us, but it's over. This stops right now." The crowd behind me began to emerge, the supporters rising like an unstoppable wave. I could feel the strength of their collective will surging through my veins. Gregory stepped forward, his eyes narrowing in a mix of calculations and disbelief. You think this is going to work, Jenkins? You're only making things worse for yourself. Wrong, I replied, holding up the evidence bag high. This is proof of your misconduct, every threat, every lie. And we're not going to stand for it any longer. I turned to the cameras, knowing full well the eyes of the public would see this. Take note. You've bullied good people for far too long. Now the world will see you for what you really are. Confusion swept through the ranks of the HOA members. Just as I thought I had them rattled, Gregory regained his composure, a cold smirk returning to his lips. You think exposing us will save you? You're dreaming, Jenkins, he hissed, stepping back into his confident stance. The game isn't over until we say it is. You only have a limited time before you fall into your deepest trap yet. Before I knew it, he raised a hand, signaling for the men to surround me. They began to close in, their faces hardening, but the crowd behind me surged forward, an unbreakable line of support. Back off. Eric shouted, stepping forward, his strong stance inspiring courage in the others. No one is going anywhere until we get some answers. The tension grew thicker, and the air crackled with anticipation. I could feel every heartbeat. Time to talk about justice, I declared, gripping the evidence tightly. But as I spoke, a new sound filled the night, the steady roar of more engines approaching on the horizon. What now? Mason whispered, glancing nervously. The headlights grew brighter, and suddenly a line of trucks rolled into view, community members, farmers, and old allies, all ready to stand shoulder to shoulder. They parked in a defensive formation, blocking any escape. Looks like we have company, I smirked, adrenaline surging as I turned back to the shaking board members. Enough games, I said, reclaiming my voice. We're exposing everything, and there's nothing you can do to stop us. The shock registered across their faces, and I seized the moment. You've been caught, and we're bringing your corruption to light. Today, we take back what is ours. With that declaration, as if a dam had broken, the community surged forward, fully united. The cries of support filled the air, a resonant roar that echoed through the darkened night. In that pivotal moment, as I stood shoulder to shoulder with my neighbors, I watched the tide turn against those who thought they could control us. This was our land, our fight, and we would no longer be silenced. The standoff hung in the air thick with suspense, but I felt nothing but the pulse of hope. It was the beginning of our victory, and I knew that once the truth was unleashed, we would prevail. But just as I felt the power of the community coalesce into an unbreakable bond, a sudden flash lit up the night sky, a drone streaking overhead, its camera focused right on us. Not again, I muttered, annoyance flaring. But then a thought ignited in my mind. Everyone, smile. I shouted, and in that instant, we all turned toward the camera together, hands raised high, exuding strength and unity. Let them record. Let them see the truth. I declared, and my people erupted into cheers, the promise of resilience in our hearts. As I watched the flickering lights dot the sky, I felt the weight of every individual behind me. It was no longer just my fight. It was a movement, a testament to standing against oppression. And as the sun crested on the horizon, illuminating the power of the people, I knew we would rise, unstoppable, ready to reclaim our land and protect it from future tyranny. The HOA and their deceptive games? They would learn that they had awakened something far stronger than they could contain, a community ready to stand and fight, forever unyielding. Nothing would ever be the same again.